Hi, and welcome to We'll Drink for Travel TV. I'm here with Mr. Ken Gilbert of Sephina Spirits. I'm Ashley Tuck, your host of We'll Drink for Travel TV. Ken, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is exciting to talk about Sephina with somebody whose influence I respect a great deal.
That makes me almost want to shed a tear coming from you, because I feel like you have such a long and storied career. So let's actually jump right into it. Please tell us about yourself and about what led you to Sephina.
Okay, I'm going to keep it short on myself because I'd rather talk about Sephina. I guess maybe I should just start out by saying that I'm a beverage guy. Have been a beverage guy for 40 years. Have worked in advertising on the spirits side as well as non-alcoholic. Have been CMO for two non-alcoholic beverage brands you probably heard of. One is Snapple, the other one is Voss. And after I left Voss, which was the end of 2017, that was when I began working in earnest on developing Sephina, which was actually a kind of a twinkle in my eye starting sometime around 2004. Long time in the making. And it was really just a personal project where I started playing around with port and brown spirits because I wanted the port to have more oomph to it. And then I started trying it out on my friends, and they liked it, and they would ask me to make more. So during the course of that period, I at one point in time owned a research company. So I did some qualitative research on the project to see if the concept made sense. It did. Put it on the shelf again. And so then I started in 2018, and it took about 2.5 years to get it to market. And the delays were regulatory because I had to involve regulatory groups in 2 countries. And also there was the pandemic delay. So, it was a long time getting it to market, but it's there now, and I'm happy.
I am happy too. I actually have my bottle here. And I shared it with my friends this weekend, and we're all obsessed with it. Like, it's like something that I tasted immediately, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, and it's going to do really well just because it's very good. And I love your bottle and your packaging. I actually have the box that came in. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. So let's rewind a little bit. How did you land on Josephine Baker as someone you wanted to build your brand around?
Well, that's really one of my favorite stories. When I did the initial testing for this, the name of the brand was Cognac, and I actually trademarked it and kept it alive for 10 years. And then after we started developing the product in early 2018, I decided to do a gut check and do some more research. And so I did 4 focus groups, and everybody loved the idea of blending port with cognac. They loved the way the liquid tasted, but they hated the name Portine. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And my then partner and I were tossing around ideas, and we said, gee, if we could come up with something that has its roots in something exotic and something that's very Afrocentric. And then New Orleans came up for some reason, and then I just jumped immediately from New Orleans to Josephine Baker. And we liked the idea. And I said, let's call it Sephina, because I didn't want to call it Josephine Baker's whatever.
Right.
We negotiated a licensing agreement with the family that owns the estate, and that they're based in France. And that's how it started. But the amazing thing is that after we decided to build the product around Josephine Baker and call it Sephina, I just out of the blue one day decided to Google Josephine Baker cocktail, and what came up was port and cognac, and I almost fell off my chair.
Oh wow!
Kind of serendipity, and I said maybe this is just a sign that I should do this. So that's how it worked out.
Awesome.
And so people ask me how I found Josephine Baker. I usually say, I think she found me.
Yeah, it's sort of like destiny almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And a good thing too.
Yeah. So you're retired. You said in 2017, like, starting a beverage brand is not something that I could say most retired people would be into. So, like, what has made you really want to push forward with building essentially something from scratch at this point?
So you're asking me how crazy I am.
I mean,
Yeah.
how
And
most
that's a good question. It's a very good question. It was a passion project, and I started it, to be honest, at the age of 67 at that point in time. And I really kind of thought I'd be out a little bit sooner. And it was a passion project that, I'm full of energy. And, for me, retired is not stopping working. Retiring to me is doing what you really want to do.
Yeah.
And this is what I really wanted to do. So that's why I decided to do this. I have to admit that it's very hard to do alone, and I'm doing some things to bring some other people in the business to make the task a little bit easier and hopefully more successful. But, retirement is for people who want to stop. I have no intention to stop.
You decided to launch Sephina with cognac and port. How did you decide which cognac producer? Because obviously it has to come from Cognac, France to be considered a cognac. So how did you decide which cognac producer you were going to work with? And then on the flip side, which port wine producer you were going to work with?
Well, actually, the final product doesn't have port in it.
Oh.
It has a French fortified wine that's called Pinot de Charente, which is made in the Cognac region only. And the reason it ended up not being port was because you can't bulk ship port out of Portugal. They won't allow it. It has to be shipped in bottles to protect that industry.
Got it.
So, so my plan was to ship bulk cognac, which you can do, to Portugal and to blend the product there. But there was a side issue, which is the port producers are very concerned about getting the cooperation of the BNIC, which is the regulatory group that controls cognac. And they said, if you don't have their permission, we're not going to do it. And the reason is because France is the largest port consuming country on the planet. So they didn't want to mess with the regulatory group because that's what their business was about. So that's when I went back to my cognac producer, who I'd selected on my first trip to France in 2018, and told him what my dilemma was. And he said, well, I can solve the problem easily. We can try to do it with Pinot de Charente. It's not that different from port. So we started playing with different formulations. And after about 3 or 4 months, we finally came up with something that we liked. And the advantage is I'm able to produce all in one location without having to transship product across borders, which would have made the product a lot more expensive.
Yeah. So how long does it take for them to produce and bottle Sephina and then for it to get to the States?
It takes about a week to produce and bottle it. Once it goes through the process of starting to ship it to the United States, it takes another 6 weeks. Our warehouse is in New Jersey, and we're basically distributed in New York right now, but we're beginning to expand to some other states. But it doesn't take that long. Even though it's a simple process that's guided by papers and things of that nature, I work with people who do it all the time, so they've made it very easy.
So how did you find a cognac producer to work with? I'm sure there are several to choose from.
Well, yeah, that was part of the learning experience because, I had no idea that cognac was produced by a lot of producers who then sell it to the big guys. And so the cognacs that you get that are basically Hennessy, Remy, or Courvoisier, those are largely supplied by cognac producers that are in the region. And what they do is they blend just like Scotch producers. Okay. So I basically, found a list. I went around to 3 different cognac producers, got pricing, explored their interest in working with a boutique brand, and that was kind of important to me. And we ended up landing with a company called Vinet del Pech, and I liked them because they had a real boutique feeling to them. They liked the idea that we were doing, which is extremely important to me. And the pricing was not necessarily the best pricing, But I really, really like the product. And I love the tradition of the company because it dated back to 1707.
So you sort of launched this product during COVID. What has that experience been like? And what challenges have you faced with that?
It's been really, really tough. I mean, it's been tough is because you can't develop an on-premise business. And the problem with launching a new brand during the pandemic is that you can't do any sampling. And so you have a product like Sephina that nobody immediately understands based on the label. You got to give somebody a taste. And as you can see from your experience, it makes a big difference.
It really does.
So we were able to develop somewhat of an off-premise business. We're in 10 stores in Brooklyn and New York. We're in one very famous bar, 67 Orange in New York. And starting next week, I'm going to be selling myself to the on-premise. So I think that we'll do better in the on-premise when they open up and they're interested in talking to new brands.
Did you have investors that help you launch Sephina?
No, it's just my partner and myself, and my partner's no longer involved. So since he decided to leave the company, I've been the primary investor. So this is all on my dime. I did have some investors lined up before the pandemic, but once the pandemic hit, nobody had the stomach to introduce, to invest in the brand. So I expect to go back to them probably after 3 months or so when I've had a chance to show that the product concept is stronger.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of like a brave and courageous thing to do, I think, especially for someone who, as we discussed, is retired, to sort of use your own funding to make your passion project happen. Like, how did you decide, like, this is absolutely something you wanted to move forward with alone?
Well, two things have to fall in place. You have to be passionate about it, enough to believe in it. So, I've done okay in my career. I've never let myself down. So I'm kind of investing in myself. So I feel pretty good about that. And also, to be honest, right now, if everything that I put into Sephina was lost, it's not going to change my life. So it's okay.
I love that. I mean, you're sort of leaving it all out on the field.
That's what new products are about. I mean, you really have to have a lot of guts. And I've done a lot of new products in my career, and many of them are risky. But the products that are risky are usually the ones that are most successful if you can get through the early stages. If you can prove your concept, and get funding, then you're okay. That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Do you feel like your past experiences have helped in trying to get Sephina off the ground in a pandemic, as a new, sort of spirit drink? Do you feel like all of your experiences have helped to get you to this point?
Yeah. And, with new products, the first thing you have to have is patience. You also have to have the willingness to change direction if the market is telling you you don't have a great idea. And so I did that before I launched the product by changing the name from Cognac to Sephina. That was probably the key experience. One of the things I lack is alcoholic beverage sales experience. I've got plenty of marketing experience, so I've never had a chance to test my sales experience, which I'm really anxious to do because I've been pulled up because of the pandemic. So, I would say that if there's anything that concerns me is my ability to fill that need. But, good selling is being passionate about your product. So that's when I think I'll be okay.
I think so too. Like I said, I would say very rarely have I come across a product where I'm like, oh wow, this is it. And I'm like obsessed with Sephina. So you have like a new fan and advocate in me.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
It's very easy to sip like alone. You don't really need to mix it with anything.
No. And people like it different ways. It's pretty versatile because, and this is what I've heard from mixologists, is that because it's somewhat sweet, you don't have to add other sweet ingredients to make a good cocktail. So, for example, if you do the Sephina version of the Cosmopolitan, you don't have to add anything to make it sweet. You just add, the Sephina and whatever white spirit you want to use to make the Cosmopolitan and garnish, and it's done. And mixologists like that because it's easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also it's the sweetness. That's one of the things we found in focus groups was that women who who have had cognac and will drink it on occasion said that this was easy to drink and they would prefer this over cognac, which is really what I wanted to hear.
I would concur. So next time you can have me in a focus group and I'll tell you everything you need to hear. So you're a Black man, and your spirit is based around a Black woman, Josephine Baker. How do you feel when Sephina is referred to as a Black-owned brand?
Being a Black-owned brand is really important.
Yeah.
And it's not just important when it comes to consumers. Some of the strategics who I've spoken to about partnering with the brand want to have brands like this in their portfolio. So that's exciting. And also, being an Afrocentric brand has appeal to me because, of course, the Black Girl Magic thing, you cannot deny the importance of that. And it's got enormous crossover appeal, and it's about damn time, that these things begin to happen. So, I'm happy. I'm happy being an Afrocentric brand. I'm happy, very happy being Black owned. I'm very happy that I've created a brand that Black women might want to adopt as their own. And so, yeah, I'm really, really good for that. And if you think about the cognac business, I've read that African-American consumers account for 55% of the cognac category in this country. I mean, if it wasn't for Black people, cognac would not be what it is today in the US. So I'm happy to tap into that.
Do you feel like you have to market the same way to Black consumers as you would do white consumers? Or do you feel like you have to do target marketing at all?
Yeah, I'm relatively concentrated about the appeal of Josephine Baker as a Black woman, but she's got enormous crossover appeal because she's been around for a long time. She's got a storied, diverse career, so there's no reason that she shouldn't appeal to white consumers as well. And so, yeah, for right now, I'm targeting African Americans, but when we get distribution in parts of the city that are not primarily African American, I'll be targeting white people.
Yeah. How do you feel about the recent, with George Floyd being murdered last year, there's been sort of this rallying cry for support of Black businesses. How do you feel about that as, firstly, a Black man in America, and then secondly, a Black business owner? Like, is this something that you are welcoming, or are you sort of being trepidatious about it?
Well, first of all, it's, in my view, it's a damn shame that George Floyd had to die before people started giving us the attention that we needed relative to police brutality and supporting Black business and all those things. It's just, and it's also a shame that it had to take this long. I'm a child of the segregated South. I went to segregated schools. I used separate bathrooms and water fountains. I know what segregation is like. I kind of expected that we would be much farther along now than we are. And, what George Floyd taught me was, gee, we haven't gone as far as we thought we had. And so, now you're going through an uncomfortable period of, well, who's racist, who's not, which is one of the reasons I feel really comfortable about this right now, because I'm dealing primarily with Black people, Black store owners, Black bar owners, Black consumers. I feel very comfortable, with my own people, where I don't have to wonder whether or not, someone is second guessing my product because I'm a Black man.
It's almost like a double-edged sword, I feel. Like, it's awful that we had to be home in a pandemic in order for the world to see exactly the treatment that Black people receive from law enforcement. But also, you know, it's great that so much focus and attention has been placed on Black-owned businesses, mine included. So, you know, it's such a double-edged sword. But I love that people are rallying around these Black-owned brands because they're not just Black-owned brands. Like, they're actually like good products, which is what I want to convey. And I try as much as I can to convey to my audience, like, you know, yes, it's Black-owned, but also it's delicious. So like, you should support good things, good products, and good people behind them.
And you're right about the good people thing. That's really important. I mean, not only are the products that a lot of us are doing are really good, you know, a lot of us are really professional and know what we're doing.
Yes.
You know, and have a lot to bring to the party. I mean, if you look at Black Girls Wine, and if you look at Uncle Nearest, and if you look at, you know, what some people are doing in this industry, it is really very special.
Yes, absolutely. And they're women, you know, a lot of these brands are run by Black women. So, you know, I stand for Fawn Weaver and the McBride sisters. I think they're doing such great work. And I'm just excited like that all these other products are, you know, sort of staking their claim in you know, $1.4 trillion Black spending dollars. So, you know, it's a really exciting time, I think. What advice would you give to Black people, or anybody really, but specifically Black people who want to get their own spirit brands off the ground?
Lots of things, probably most of which is, if you're going to do this, make sure you have enough funding to give yourself at least a 1-year runway, okay? And you should look at your funding in segments. It's going to be the cost of development. It's going to be the cost of developing inventory, and then the cost of getting a distributor and warehousing, legal fees. So you have to look at the entire picture. So you look at it in segments. So if you look at the first year, you're going to spend money on development and building inventory. And then you have to have an infrastructure to be able to make it work. So, you know, first thing is make sure you have enough funding to make this work. And if you don't think you're going to have enough funding, don't do it until you do. Well,
what's enough?
I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't have done this unless I knew I had access to at least $300,000 to get things going. Okay. And I wouldn't have done it unless I knew I could have attracted funding, which I was able to. So, you know, I think I can go back and get that. So, you know, it takes a lot of money. And then the other thing is patience. You have to have a lot of patience, and you have to be willing to fail, and you have to be willing to accept that the bad days are going to come, and you're going to be able to work your way around them. It is not easy to do this. Yeah. And it looks like fun, but it's not 100% fun.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know, but most jobs are not either.
Do you have any recommendations for, you know, where people can look for that funding? Because, you know, a lot of us don't have the same networks that our white counterparts may have, whether it be school or work. You know, do you have any recommendations about where to look?
Right now in this market, it's really hard because typically that money will come from, your first round is going to come from angel investors, friends, you know, who are willing to drop 50, 25 to 100 grand on you in, you know, 25, 50, 75, 100 grand, you know, increments. Those are the people that you need to talk to. And those people are not going to talk to you unless you're willing to put up your own money. And that's the other thing, which is, you know, if you're going to go out to do a raise for development and building inventory and launch, pre-concept, you have to be able to demonstrate to your investors that you're putting up at least as much money as they are. So, you know, if you have a financial plan, that financial plan should say 50% of the money is coming from you, and the other 50% is coming from angels, because angels don't want to put their money into something that somebody doesn't want to put in themselves.
Yeah.
Because you want shared risk.
Yeah. What legacy do you want to leave with Sephina? What's the goal here?
My goal is to build, a brand that is doing a couple 100,000 cases, which is a lot, but I believe it's possible if you look at the entire Cognac universe. That's still Black owned and is also managed and run by Black people. That really would be my legacy. As you pointed out earlier, I'm kind of semi-retired. I'm not sure how much longer I want to work as much as I'm working right now. It would be nice to be able to bring in some Black women and give them some equity and make sure they're well funded to run with this thing and let them run with it. And that would be my legacy. That's what I would love to see happen.
How do you know? Like, how will you know when that time will come?
It'll come when you get to a certain size volume where you've got a business that consists of relatively decent sized marketing department, very healthy sales, good distribution network, and then and if I can achieve my objective of trying to populate the business with Black people, preferably mostly Black women, then what happens is instead of doing, the sellout, what you try to do is give them equity in the business so that they have a little bit of skin in the game, so that they want to hang around and perhaps participate in the next financial event.
Why specifically Black women? I'm just curious. I mean, I love the idea, but I'm just curious why you've narrowed on Black women.
Well, the brand is built around the Black woman, and Black women, deserve to get their chance. Black men haven't had that much more of a chance than Black women, but they have had more of a chance. And so, it's about income and opportunity equality within the Black community.
That's awesome. Where can people find Sephina?
Right now, if you go to our website, you can find us in 4 stores in Brooklyn and 4 stores in Harlem. And hopefully when I get out and start selling next week, it'll be in some bars and restaurants.
I am looking forward to it. I'm obsessed with it. It's just so good. And I know Black women or women in general, really like it, but I think it's a unisex drink. I feel like everyone, if I brought this to a party, everyone could enjoy it.
Oh yeah. When we did the testing, we did testing with Black men also. They liked it. They said this would be a good alternative to Cognac. And they also said, it was interesting. They said, I could buy a woman a Sephina at a bar, and they said and they would probably think, well, gee, I'm not really trying to hit on them because I'm not trying to get them drunk with Cognac.
Well, I'm down for any man who wants to buy me anything at a bar. I'm like,
that's funny.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. This was fun. I'm so happy for you, and I'm excited for Sephina. You got some gold here, so I'm really excited to see what happens with it.
Me too. I'm very excited too, and we should be in touch.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.